Okay, the Leafs Convo is finally here for Oak Ridge Ford. It is Sunday, April 14, 2024. NJ and LDN. MIB in Below. The Leafs coming off a 5-4 overtime loss to the Red Wings, who are clinging to their playoff lives. You can't blame them for taking a lead and then gutting it out in the extra frame. In the interim, the Leafs lose the mix, McCann, McCabe, but the one and only Austin Matthews picks up his 69th goal of the season. 2 to play, Mike Augello, Tuesday and then Wednesday. The Lightning and the Panthers. Everybody wants to know your take on this, Mike, with one goal to get to reach 70 for the first time in 31 years, and 2 to play against two teams from Florida who would love to not only beat the Leafs, but stick it literally and figuratively into the ribs of Austin Matthews. Does number 34 play this week to get number 70, or do you kind of keep him out of harm's way and get him prepped for what we hope is a decent playoff run from the Maple Brothers? Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Norm. I don't play him both games. I played him one, and I don't play him against Florida because they're going to play Florida. And with that group of miscreants that they have, and I say that lovingly, like Lomborg and Bennett and Nick Cousins, and they don't have Gudis anymore, but they're a tough team. They play a tough brand of hockey, and they're going to try to inflict some pain. That they'd be stupid if they didn't. And I saw some fans respond to me and says, "Well, the Leafs could inflict some pain on them with who? With who? Ryan Reeves and what army? It's like, okay, Max Domi maybe a little bit." But if he could keep his stick down and not take stupid penalties, but
poor guy.
That is not the Leafs bailiwick. That's not the game that they play. Right. Now, are they more playoff tested in terms of physicality this year as they were as opposed to last year? Yes, but that's not the game that they play.
Right.
And Florida is going to try to lay a beating on them. So if I'm Sheldon Keefe, and the way Sheldon Keefe talked about it in the post game, he was saying something, and people were criticizing him. He says, every time Austin Matthews got the puck, the crowd started to roar because they thought 70 was coming. I mean, if I was in the crowd, I would have done the same thing. But the point is that it's now getting to be a distraction. And maybe it's good that they're getting out of Toronto for the last two games, but I would play them against Tampa because Tampa's locked into the first wild card. Tampa is probably going to rest some of their players, like Stamkos, like maybe Kucherov,
right?
Maybe Point, maybe they sit Vasilevsky. Play Matthews against that team,
right?
Don't play him against Florida.
So the Bolts have no skin in the Leafs' aspirations right now.
No, they're locked into the first wild card. They can't catch the Leafs. They're going to play whoever the worst of the two division winners is. They're going to get prepped for the playoffs. The playoffs start for them, Saturday, Sunday. So they're probably going to rest some of their veteran guys. And I think the Leafs should do the same against. In terms of putting your more valuable players, I would put them in against Tampa to help Matthews get goal number 70. I mean, if he scores 69, he scores 69. I'm sure he wants to get 70. I think every Leaf fan wants to see him get 70, but it's not the end of the world if he doesn't. But what will be the end of the world is if he gets hurt. If he gets hurt in game number 81, who will take the brunt of that? It'll be Sheldon Keefe. Sheldon Keefe will get the brunt of that if he doesn't sit him against Florida and he gets slashed on the wrist a la Adam Graves and Mario Lemieux back in the day and breaks his wrist. And there goes your chances of any kind of playoff glory.
This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. If you want a small SUV for next to nothing, still going to cost you something. You can get a Bronco Sport all-wheel drive, really low interest rates. You have discounts on top of that. I'm talking like mid 200s bi-weekly to get yourself into one of the most popular small SUVs out there. I can help you with that. Norman Oak Ridge Ford on Instagram. Thank you so much to Mark Stevens and the crew with the Raffi Auto Group and Oak Ridge Ford for sponsoring this podcast. The monetary support means a lot to us. Without you, we don't do this as frequently as we have been. Brandon Griffiths, Matthews has to play until he hits 70. So, well, he's got 2 opportunities. We know he's most likely going to draw in for the Tampa game. If that's what he wants, Brandon continues. He has earned it and deserves that respect. No doubt about that, Brandon. Worried about injury, but I think you have to do it. Mike, I like your explanation. I like your logic. I like how you would lay it out. Play him against Tampa. I don't know any reason why they would want to eliminate him from opportunity in the playoffs. I mean, the rivalry from the last several years aside, with Florida, who the hell knows? The thing of what bothers me about capitulating and kowtowing to the Panthers is the message you're sending about what's to come when the second season begins. Like, isn't it just a whole big steaming cup of fuck you if they go out and do what they have to do, put Matthews out there and say, yeah, you know what, take a run at him. We know you're going to do that in the playoffs anyway. Here's our guys. We'll see you in a week or two. And oh, by the way, Mr. Matthews has his 70 the first time in 30 years.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Tampa Bay is going to lay back and say, take yours.
But it's a game to them. They have other things to do. Right. If he scores 70, who cares? I don't know. This isn't a personal thing.
Right. No, agreed. And then that's why I'm saying it's like, it makes sense. You know, do they want to give up 70? No, but I don't think they're going to be out gunning and running and gunning. I mean, Detroit, if you looked at what happened in that game yesterday, there was a do or die game, and Detroit was pretty scummy. Like, you know, Veleno running Liljegren into the boards. There were a couple other instances. Bobby McMahon gets hurt. We'll talk about the injuries in a minute. You know, they were pretty aggressive. And I think, you know, the Leafs over the last week or so have sort of adopted the approach of, well, okay, let's just not get hurt.
Right.
And sometimes when you play like that, you get hurt. But, you know, you're in a situation here where I think right now they want to be as close to 100% healthy as possible going into the playoffs, not leave anything to chance. I think there are some things that have been a little bit concerning over the last few games that we'll go into. But, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I get where the person who put the message up there is coming from. And I don't think Austin Matthews is that selfish that he's going to say, I want to play both games.
Right.
I think he's going to say, okay, I'm going to get my opportunity in one of these 2 games. And, you know, if Sheldon Keefe wants to say, okay, Austin, you choose Florida or Tampa, because you're not playing both. We're going to rest. It's going to be like a preseason situation. We're going to rest our players in one of the 2 games. They're not going to play back to back. We're going to rest as many people going into the playoffs. The playoffs start on Saturday night, more than likely for the Leafs in Florida. They're going to stay down there. They're not going to travel. You know, you fill your boots in one game, but you're not playing both.
It's nice that a Maple Leaf is chasing an accolade that is just so revered and has been so elusive to so many players for so long. That is a real win in and of itself. But how many of you OGs and converts will be going on about Matthews 70 after the Leafs get swept in the first round, whether Matthews is there or not, right? The fact that he's so far ahead of is it Sam Bennett and Zach Hyman winning
Sam Reinhart.
Sam Reinhart. He's going to win the Rocket Richard Trophy going away by 15, 16 goals. That is a major accomplishment as well. Like, you know, 69 is huge, and, you know, 70 is just a plateau, and it's a number that we can all talk about because it's such a sexy number that it has this appeal, but no player's been close for so long. But 69 is a lot, and winning by the degree he has, you know, that says a lot about where he is as a prolific goal scorer, not just for this time period, but for all time. I can tell you he would shave off half of the goals he scored to give himself an opportunity to go deep into a playoff. So, you know, say he ends at 69, great, or 70, great. How about 13, 14, 15 goals through 3-4 rounds of the Stanley Cup playoffs? I'm sure he would take a lot of those regular season goals and bank him for the playoffs if he had that chance. As long as he gets that chance, that's the big thing for us, Michael Augello. Mitch Marner's looked pretty good in his return. What, 5 games, 8 points?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that he's setting himself up to have a, I wouldn't say the playoff that we've all wanted him to have that he hasn't had. He's over a point per game in the Stanley Cup playoffs for his career. But do you think he's ready to take it to another level and be that guy to facilitate and play the role and go deep and mature as a superstar in this league? Because he's got to mature with some playoff success if he's going to get any credibility thrown his way from the fan base, and if he wants to make that big money, which I'm sure him and his representation will lobby for here in the near future.
I'm sure Leaf fans hope that he's setting himself up for a big playoff. Yes, he's played well coming back. He's playing on the penalty kill now. He's acting as sort of the quasi quarterback on the power play. I think it benefits him to play in a secondary role. While Bertuzzi, Domi, and Matthews are playing on that number 1 line, now Keefe has some flexibility, putting Marner with Tavares, and sometimes they can move Nylander up onto that second line, or move him down to the third. They have some ability to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that helps them, and that if you're playing with Matthews and it's Matthews and Marner, if you're Florida, you're going to be putting Alexander Barkov's line against them.
Hey, Mike, can I interrupt you real quick? Spike 11, are you ever going to let what happened with Marner go? I mean, it's not like he was the only reason the Leafs didn't do anything. Point per game means nothing if the Stars don't show up in elimination games. That was a year ago. So if the Leafs beat the Panthers, that's who we expect them to play, and Marner's good, is that it? Right? What happens in the second round if he goes dud? And so does Nylander, and so does Matthew. I mean,
well, okay.
At some point we have to let it go.
If Spike is referring to Game 7 against Montreal or Game 7 against Tampa Bay in 2022, he's right. They didn't show up.
He's talking about Mitch Marner.
But in Game 6, an elimination game against Tampa Bay, they did show up. But then they didn't show up for most of the entire Florida series because Florida shut them down. You need Mitch Marner to be part of the group to be able to score with regularity, especially if you weren't getting secondary scoring like you didn't get for most of the year last year and for most of the playoffs. When it came to this year, or when it comes to this year, you're expecting Bertuzzi and Domi and Nyes and these guys to contribute offensively in secondary roles. If you're reliant solely on your core guys to score the goals, you're not going to win. You need secondary scoring. So yes, you need Marner, but you also need David Kampf to score.
Right.
So, I mean, I think the criticism of the core group of this team is legitimate. And that's why I say 2 words when it comes to the playoffs, when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Show me. Right. Show me that you can do it. Until you don't.
It's a collective. Yes. William Nylander's got, 4 points in 12 games. He's been so close to 100 points. And let's hope he gets his 3 points and hits the century mark, and the Nylanderites will, I have a seance or do something to either get him through or to bow to his feet. I mean, that's great, and I'm happy for you. But at the end of the day, these guys win as a team. They lose as a team. They have their warts. They have the things about them that make them that much more special than the next player. I think collectively, this group, Matthews, Nylander, Marner, Tavares, the big four, have to go on a run here. And I know, Mike, that the expectation will be failure, but deep down, we're hoping for success. And you said last show that this team today is not as good as the one that was embarking on a playoff run last year because, you're the Ryan O'Reilly's not there.
Luke Shen.
Luke Shen. Some of the kind of the sandpapery kind of guys who aren't there now. But, I'd beg to differ in many ways with Ryan Reeves about Domi and Bertuzzi, you said they play with their hair on fire. Why the hell can't they do that for the Maple Leafs going forward 1, 2, maybe 3 rounds? Both of these guys were good playoff performers last spring. You have serviceable defensemen. You have a carousel of goaltenders. Any one of them could get hot. The big four need to prove themselves. Sheldon Keefe, who knows? He could get fired after this. There's a lot at stake here. Why not now, Mike?
Well, I mean, it very well could happen, but my fatalist point of view is that I'll believe it when I see it. And with this team, you haven't seen it much. They make the playoffs and then they don't have success. I mean, there's reasons for that. Now, you could say, well, they come up against really good teams. Well, there are 16 good teams in the playoffs. You're not going to come up against somebody easy. I mean, I look at the team right now and their defense is deeper than it was last year. But Luke Schenn playing on the right side with Morgan Rielly was a difference maker. Remember, Morgan Rielly had his best production as a defenseman in the playoffs. Can
Lyubushkin not fill Schenn's role?
He's not the same type of player. I mean, Lyubushkin is solid and he's tough. Right. He's positionally sound, although some people would quibble with that.
Well, he better be. He better be in the next week.
But he's not as overtly physical as Luke Schenn is. Luke Schenn is proactively physical, and I think Lyubushkin is tough. Yeah. But the guys who will be more proactive will be McCabe, will be Edmondson But they're sort of a passive group, and against a team like Florida, who is going to be proactive, you're going to see those guys, the Lomborgs, the Cousins, the Bennetts, Reinhart to an extent. They're going to be physical.
Right.
Matthew Tkachuk, they're going to be physical. They're going to put you on it. They're going to try to take you off of your game, and the Leafs have to be ready for that. And they, yes, they have Ryan Reeves. Ryan Reeves is one player. He can act as a sheriff.
You sound like you're ready to throw in the towel right now.
No, I'm looking at it objectively.
No, I know. I'm being the devil's advocate. I'm challenging you a little bit, but the way it's being presented, this matchup, Leafs Panthers, and that statistically, that's the way it looks like it's going to present itself here in the next couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. The indication from you is that the Leafs don't have a hope.
I think they're the dramatic underdog in that series.
Okay.
Now, does that mean that they can't win? No. Does it mean that they will win? I'm not a soothsayer.
Listen to me, man. It'll come down to the big four having an otherworldly playoff. And when I say otherworldly, it's based on what we've seen them do in the playoffs versus what's required. The thing is, all those years ago when the group was formulated and put together, and the prognostications of success were such, this is if they are to succeed and the big four are to carry the day and just rise above and just be like dominant and better, this is what was expected all of those years ago. Mike, real quick, Hunter, something just feels different. Domi with some snarl, Reeves competently playing 8 to 10 minutes, someone like McCann and McCabe throwing hits, something is cooking. Well, can Hunter not feel somewhat I don't know if he's obviously being very subjective about his beliefs here, but can he not feel some optimism about what's to come, or is it going to hit him square in the face after the first couple of periods of that opener?
I'm not going to begrudge his optimism. I'm just going to say that and I joked about it before, but I like the physicality that Domi brings, but right. He takes bad penalties. He takes ill-timed penalties, and they cannot deal with that. Their penalty killing has been below average this year. They need to take advantage of the other team's stupid penalties. Like Patrick Kane had a couple high-sticking penalties yesterday. Their power play, they cashed in on one. I don't think they scored on the power play after that. Their special teams have been pretty
right. And that's frightening. That's frightening. How did they get that in order in such short order?
If I had that answer, they would hire me on the staff. But this is the thing, and we'll just quickly go through the positions right now. The goaltending situation, I mean, I know that people don't want to admit that this is a concern, but when Ilya Samsonov gives up 10 goals in 4 periods, even though the games are meaningless, that is not exactly what you want to go into the playoffs with. Now, okay, after a rough first period, giving up 4 goals against the Wings yesterday, he had a very, low event second period. He played well in the third period, gave up the game-winning goal, but I don't think he was at fault for that. But still, 11 goals in 2 games.
Right.
He's going to probably split with Wall one of the final 2 games. So I would say, am I like infused with confidence about how Ilya Samsonov is playing right now? No, I'm not. But they're going to go with him in game 1.
Here, I like John Howard's idea of you becoming the next mayor of Buffalo.
I don't want that job.
Being in Cheektowaga, do you qualify?
No, I have to live in this. You'd have to live in the
okay, so you're not the next Anthony Masiello?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. The only thing good about him was he's a Yankee fan. I've run into him a couple times.
OG's comments.
He's not totally stupid.
He's just partly. OG's comments, like the content, subscribe to the channel. The power play has concerned me for most of the year. The penalty kill doesn't get me excited. All we can hope for at this point, Mike, is that a new, like a brand new season, as abbreviated as it will be, brings out a brand new group of guys who can summon the success they've had on the power play over the last several years and can lock it down on the penalty kill. Like, go back, 10, 15 years? Was it the Montreal Canadiens getting into the playoffs on the last day of the regular season, and then they went on a run to the Eastern Conference Final? The St. Louis Cardinals, 83 wins in the NL Central Division, winning a World Series. It's like nobody would have thought that team could go on a run as extensive as it did. And those are just 2 cases of teams that back into the playoffs or get into the second season with nobody expecting them to do anything, and then they go on a crazy run. Like, are the Leafs required to do something super magical to get anything done in the Stanley Cup playoffs, Mike? Or, just by the fact that they've been hanging in so long here with this group, is there no way that these guys can find a little bit of magic, but kind of the fact that they've been down this road so many times before and had so much failure that this just might be a time where it could come together?
Well, the reason that those examples that you pointed out were so memorable is that they're so infrequent. It's like, okay, I think it was 2010 that Philadelphia got in the last day of the regular season, beat the Rangers in a shootout. And then I think that was the team that went to the Cup final and lost to Chicago. Normally, the teams that make it to the Stanley Cup finals and win a Stanley Cup are similarly constructed.
Right.
You've usually got a star center or 2 centers. You usually have a big, tough defense. Usually you have good to great goaltending. Now, there's exceptions to the rule. Aiden Hill isn't exactly Terry Sawchuk. The Pittsburgh Penguins won the Stanley Cup in 2017 with Ron Hainsey as their number 1 defenseman, but they had Sidney Crosby and Malkin. So there are reasons for those things happening. It's not a situation where there is a reason to be optimistic when your team is in the 20s in penalty killing and has been in there the second half of the season pretty much.
Right.
And, it was starting to improve a little bit, and then they lose one of their better penalty killers in Bobby McMahon 2 games before the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Now Marner's back. Marner is one of the better penalty killers, but they're going to be challenged against a team like Florida that's going to send somebody to the front of the net to distract the goaltender. And are they going to be able to clear out the front of the net to let Samsonov or Joseph Wall, whoever the goaltender is, see the puck coming? Power play, The power play was top 5 in the league until I think around the end of February, and it's been the worst in the NHL. And that, again, when you have like teams like Pittsburgh with Carlson and Letang and Crosby, and they're 31st in the league, it's inexplicable because there's so much offensive talent there. Right. This is a unit that works, that has worked in the past. Maybe they can turn it on, but I don't know about the flick a switch and all of a sudden you're good. It doesn't work that way.
So the Leafs finished 7th in the league in power play, right ahead of the Florida Panthers. The Leafs, 24th on the penalty kill. The Panthers 6th. I'm not frightened by it, Mike, because I get what I get from the Maple Leafs, right? I'm not going to go immerse myself fully into the hope that the Leafs can win a Stanley Cup, because this is the year. I get why fans do it, and I'm glad they do. They need to do it because we don't, but we're a part of the same sect, right? Mm-hmm. But the combination of Florida's toughness and tenacity and their belief that what is owed to them is for the taking based on where they finished last year, and where the Maple Leafs are in terms of their growth and, some of the question marks and the group they have, not necessarily star-studded below the top 4, just a bunch of serviceable guys that might be able to. And then the whole notion of Florida being just that much tougher than this group, not just with fisticuffs, but the way they play and just how tenacious they are, makes me fearful of this matchup. And my concern is the Leafs don't have anybody who we can rely on as being super savvy, or a group of players who'd be super savvy, who have it in their minds already to lure these bastards into the gutter, fuck them up big time mentally, get them a man down, get into their heads, let them play rough and tumble, and then beat them in special teams, right? It might be one tact that this team could employ, but do they have the personnel who are ready to go to that role and play that role in a way that, it's just so deep into the game plan that it might result in success, especially if you don't think you can go toe to toe with these cats. We'll talk about injuries and get the hell out of here after that. You respond to my comments.
I mean, the one thing that is concerning is we know traditionally the amount of penalties decreases in the playoffs. They don't want to call penalties as much as they do during the regular season. And the Leafs have had a nasty habit of not drawing penalties as much. Now, you could say last year was because they had Michael Bunting was a diver, but I don't believe, and I don't remember immediately recall how many penalties they've drawn, but it's usually not very high, in spite of the fact that they have star players. Of course, it doesn't seem to work that, Austin Matthews gets knocked down and there's a penalty called, whereas somebody other star on some other team gets the call. I just think right now, like, if it comes down to a special teams battle against Florida, the Leafs are at a distinct disadvantage. They're going to have to win this series playing better 5-on-5 and avoid taking penalties. And if they try to be uncharacteristically physical, that's sometimes when the referees will call penalties on the team that they're not used to being the physical team.
And Mike, the Leafs just flat out score more than the Panthers. They just flat out score more than the Panthers. They do give up a lot more goals, so that's an issue. Anthony Stolarz, a former Londonite, I remember him from 15 years or so ago. Mm-hmm. Is he Florida's guy?
No, it's going to be Bobrovsky.
Right?
Definitely Bobrovsky. I mean, Stolarz has played really well, but Bobrovsky has been pretty consistent all year. It's not a repeat of last year where Alex Lyon was the goalie going into the playoffs against Boston, and then they went to Bobrovsky when Lyon ran out of gas. It's Bobrovsky. He'll be game one. I mean, it's not out of the question that Stolarz could, if there's an back-to-back situation in the playoffs, more than likely they're going to go with Bobrovsky from pillar to post.
Right.
But it's possible they could mix in Stolarz if there's a minor injury or something of that nature.
Pillar to post. I love how folksy you are. Like you're just a beauty. I've seen the Matthew Nye's name brought up, Nick Robertson. I'm thinking the big guys, the heavyweights, the dudes who were brought in, acquired to get the job done, are the ones who will carry the day. But is there a name or two of a player who you think might fly under the radar until it's too late for the Panthers?
Well, in terms of an addition to the lineup, I think, they hope that Yarncroke will be back, and he gives the lineup more depth, and an additional guy who can kill penalties and fit in on a second line, third line role. If McMahon is not able to play, then Nyes might get kicked up into the second line role that he played. You might see them play Nylander and Marner alongside Tavares and have a super second line. But again, this is going to be a collective effort.
Okay, just I've got more things coming to my mind. We should probably wrap up soon. But Matthews, Bertuzzi, Domi. That's line number one for the playoffs. They're going to keep rolling with that. Yeah. Line number two will be,
well, Tavares and Marner with, if McMahon is healthy, McMahon. If not, then it could be Yarncroke. It could be Nyes.
Do you think that Nylander, once all world and scoring all these points and being the guy, shifting down to that third group is causing him to either grip it too tight, not get in, or lose his groove, which have resulted in less points?
No, I think it's a sort of chicken and the egg type of thing. He wasn't scoring before he was shifted to the third line. So he wasn't scoring since before Marner came back. So
you got to get him going.
He just hasn't played well the last 12 or 13 games.
Right. Is he alienated down there? Like, I mean, he on the first two lines, he was a driver of one. I mean, he was a facilitator on another. I mean, talk about a guy that we need to be there when it counts. Spike 11, Nylander will show up in the playoffs. Let's hope so.
Okay.
A lot of OGs and converts are concerned about Ilya Samsonov, though. I've seen his name brought up several times. Where is he? Flip side, welcome to the project, my man. Yeah, Sammy scares me. Wilfred Witzke's concerned. There have been several comments, not bashing Ilya Samsonov, but there he is, Wilfred Witzke. Sammy needs to find his game fast. It's this thing about recency bias is a thing, Mike. Remember, everybody wanted him shipped out of town. Joseph Wall, the goalie of the future. Martin Jones doing his thing. Wall comes in, he's okay. Sammy goes on a run, and now he's the guy. And then he's given up all these goals of late heading into the playoffs, and now everybody's concerned again. It's a hot hand kind of thing, Mike. But, I guess based on where we are, and we've got 2 games to go. So if they're clusterfucks, then we'll all be completely freaked out. But if he can get through at least one of them and be okay, I think Ilya Samsonov's the guy you got to start with in the playoffs. And let's hope he goes on a run and that you don't have to supplant him with someone else to hopefully save the day.
It's a situation where you're fearful, and okay, he went 17-3-1 since the middle of January, since the reset. He's playing really well, and then he gives up a goal like he gave up to I think it was Perron at the end of the first period on Saturday, and it was reminiscent of the brain cramp. And you're wondering whether, okay, is it all going to rush back? He's let one bad goal in. Is that going to crumple his confidence? Now, you could say Keefe did the right thing by keeping him in, because I saw a lot of people, including myself, saying you could see Joseph Wall in the second period. And they went back to Samsonov, and Samsonov didn't let another goal in until the overtime. And he made a couple saves late in regulation on Perron and one other one that were really good, nice pad saves. But you have to be worried that the broken psyche will come back. It's like you can say, oh, he's past it. He's showing some mental toughness. One goal, and it could all come rushing back. You don't know, and you're not going to know until you're in the middle of the battle.
That is a tough spot to be in. Any coach who has to be one, accommodating, but also be aware of the fragility of that particular player. You let in a couple bad goals, you got to let the player, not just because they've earned it, but because they're a professional, fight their way back. It's like having a bad inning in baseball. Give up 3, 4, 5 runs, you're going to get yanked. You don't know. That pitcher could stabilize and pitch 4 or 5 shutout innings after and take the pressure off the bullpen to have to eat up a whole bunch of outs when really they're only there to supply energy and big pitches over 2 or 3 innings. If you are a goaltender who gives up a couple of shitty goals, you've earned the right to try to work your way out of it. And the team has to play for you and support you. But on the flip side, when every goal counts that much more and every goal against pushes you that much closer to elimination, and we already know that these guys have a history of falling off fast. No wonder why, Mike, you're skeptical. No wonder why. However, I've used the word magic. Maybe the Leafs have done enough to earn their opportunity to conjure up some magic and go on a crazy run. We should probably get out of here, Mike. Did you want to mention anything about the injuries? Anything, not necessarily that concerns you, but a bit of an update for the OGs and converts to at least leave this show tonight on an optimistic and just I guess, assured tone?
Well, the Leafs, they traditionally do not practice on Sundays, so there won't be an update on McMahon. The video of the incident, it looked like an ankle sprain. And he limped off the ice, so we can only hope that he can be ready for the playoffs. But like I said, Yarncroke could be back. They could move Nyes up. But they definitely would want a big forward like McMahon available for a team like the Panthers. I will say and somebody, I think it was Commander Brantford, was like asking about Martin Jones. Ideally, I would like to get Jones one start in one of these 2 games, like play Wall and then maybe play Jones. But do they really want to have Samsonov not play an entire week? Probably not. They probably will start Wall against.
What's wrong with that, though, Mike? Hey, Sammy, it's
Rust.
good.
Rust.
He's played it. No, Rust.
Rust.
Really?
Yeah.
He just needs a break. He's not even terrible.
No, they don't want a goaltender, the starting goaltender in a series, to not see pucks in an entire week. So he'll probably play one of the 2 games.
But if Matthews had scored his 70th last night, we would have shut him down for the last 2 games, right? Is there not rust involved with your best player?
I think he still would have played one of the 2.
Right. So you wanted to see. So how would the goalie rotation? If you got Jones, you've got a Wall, you've got Sammy. Like, you can only dress 2 goalies, right?
Yeah, but they have to. But based on, and you never know about injuries. So Martin Jones stepped into the lurch in December and saved their season. I mean, he could do it again. He went to a Stanley Cup final. So, but and he'll practice with the team and all that. But it's like there's a difference between practice and going into a Stanley Cup playoff game. So, ideally, I would have liked for them to have gotten him a game, but they didn't.
If the Leafs had won the President's Trophy by now and were the odds-on favorite to win the Stanley Cup, you and I both know that the likelihood of them fulfilling that obligation as the favorite would be extremely slim. So what the hell is wrong with them going in as a I wouldn't say a severe underdog, but an underdog that you and I are expecting not to fulfill their obligation of a great team that finally needs to come around, right? I mean, it could be worse. There's an excitement there, an uncertainty, a skepticism, but deep down, a hope and a belief. That's why we're fans. Mike, does Auston Matthews finish the regular season with 70 goals?
Yes, I think he'll get 70. I think he'll get the 70th goal against Tampa.
Okay, so he scores it in the first period on Tuesday.
Then I think you limit him to power plays and don't play in the rest of the game.
Right. and that's good. And then he hangs out in the press box in the next game.
Yeah, put him in bubble wrap.
Spike 11 seems to think that Austin Matthews is going to hit 71.
Okay.
Why not? Why
Sure.
not? And Austin Matthews' 71 goals will help the Leafs go on a long, protracted, amazing, real playoff run. How? Right? So this is a good thing for us. Arguably hockey's biggest and most important team, the greatest goal scorer of this new generation. It's a wonderful story, and I hope it happens because Austin Matthews is an amazing guy, an amazing player, and this is great. But how does any of it impact the Leafs in a positive and meaningful way when the second season starts? We don't know. It may, and I certainly hope it does. OG's Converts, like the content, subscribe to the channel. We have a goal to hit ourselves. We can get there with your help. Mike and I will definitely be ramping up the content over the days, weeks, and maybe months to come. The more people we have involved in this project, the merrier. The more eyeballs we get, the more word of mouth we get, the more people who want to immerse themselves in our culture, which will not only be great for us over the next little while, but throughout the summer as we cover whatever the hell happens, and then into what we hope will be a season 7. Mr. A, what do you have going on at hockeybuzz.com?
It's all the playoffs, all the lead up to the playoffs this week.
Okay. And you know where you can find me, right, guys? The car salesman at Norman Oakridge Ford. Hey, we got to pay the bill somehow. If you're looking for a vehicle for yourself, for your kids, for someone you know, I'm the guy. It's a global marketplace. I'm doing deals all over Ontario, and I'm even delivering cars myself. That's how committed, Mike, I am to my constituency and my client base. Mr. A, have a great night. Thanks for doing this so late. And to you, the OGs and converts, sticking around with us to this hour, that shows your commitment. It's right back at you. For Mike, I'm Norm. Have a great week. We'll see you soon. 70 for Matthews is coming.